Hello and happy Tuesday, which is back on track to be my book reviews day. And today I want to talk to you about Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, the third title in her Green Bone saga, as published by Orbit, which is like a fantasy version of The Godfather. I've talked about the first two books already, and they've said online that it's like The Godfather with magic and kung fu, and I think that's a pretty apt description of the series as a whole. It takes place in a fictional world where there is bioenergetic jade. Think of like the jade stones, except this jade grants you little superhuman abilities, whether it's increased strength, increased speed, the ability to steal yourself from blows, the ability to channel energy in others, and so on, and to perceive things. Heightened sense of perception, not a scent of perception. That wouldn't make sense. Anyways, first book was absolutely incredible. Second book, I was a little middle of the road with. I had my problems with it. I've talked about that. Check out the book review for that if you like. The third book, I'm still a little mixed. I have some weird complaints about it that you are never going to possibly ever hear for a 700-page book ever again. In that, at 700 pages, Jade Legacy is the slimmest and most trimmed book I think I've ever read. There is no filler in this. And that's a weird thing to say, but I'll get to that in a second. So this is just a trade edition. I did get it signed by Fonda Lee, courtesy of the signed page, which is really awesome. She was actually just at the signed page signing copies of her newest title, which is not in the Green Bone saga, but sounds very exciting nonetheless. So I mentioned in my review for Jade War, which has taken the original title, took place solely on the island of Kekon, or Kekon? I still don't know how to say it. I want to say Kekon, because they call each other Keeks. Unless I'm pronouncing that wrong. Maybe it's Kiki. I don't know. I do like the meme thing. But anyways, takes place entirely on Kekon, or Kekon. It's a clan war between the two factions, the two clans that primarily are responsible for protecting the Jade. The second title expands upon that and brings it to a global scale, primarily in Kekon and Espenia. And then the other countries have this war going on in the background. Third one expands it further. I mean, you do kind of touch base into more politics within the other nations, but it still very much centers on the No Peak clan, one of the two major clans that control Janloon. It has huge cast of characters, so much so that there's a nice little, list of all the people that are going to be in this novel. One of my complaints with the second one, other than the fact that it's called Jade War, and the war was kind of behind the scenes, was that the second novel jumped around months at a time. The third novel jumps around even more, but one of the things the third novel does nicely that the second novel did not is that it does tell you of these jumps. Let me get to another chapter here, which, of course, there we go. It does follow, however, what year it is, or how many years it's been since Hilo became the head of his family. So it starts off in the 6th year, and it spans 20 years over the course of the novel, which is crazy. That's a huge amount of time for a novel to span. But, I mean, it's been done before. Blackwater, for example, and Michael McDowell spans generations. 101 Years of Solitude spans generations. It's been done before, and Fonda Lee does that quite well. I mean, she does jump years and years and years, and there's no filler in those jumps whatsoever. But that, and this is the craziest thing that I feel like I should not be saying, is I almost wish there was more filler. Like, she could have very easily made this novel into several novels by spacing things out and putting some filler, which, I mean, she's not wasting your time, that's for sure, by doing that, because she's trimming as much fat and filler as she can, and I commend her for it, because holy crap, she does well in fitting the 20 years in here. And you're probably thinking, how is that a complaint? Well, I guess, to me, my way of saying that's a complaint is that it's more episodic in nature than the previous two novels were. Jade City very much was one novel centered around two warring factions in Janloon. It was telling one story of this clan war between the two of them. The second novel did jump around months at a time, but it still had that one main story that it was pretty tight on. This one, I mean, the story of like the warring clans is definitely there behind the scenes. There's definitely tension between them and different events that occur, but it almost seems episodic, where you jump into a year, you'll jump into year 10, and they say, hey, we want to expand into this other nation, and shit'll hit the fan, pardon my language, and things will happen, and it's very high tense and it's very wild ride. And then once you get to the end of that little episode, a couple chapters in that episode, it's like, all right, cool, that episode's done. We're gonna jump ahead another year and a half to what will be the next episode, where we're now dealing with this other situation that happens. And each of these situations do have their twists and turns. They do have absolute drama to keep you on the edge of your seat. But I felt this one didn't have as strong of a central narrative that the first two novels did. It's I guess it's like a puzzle. You the grand puzzle, the whole grand scheme of things is your total story. And what this novel does is it keeps giving you little pieces of it, little tiny ones. And at the end, it all does come together in a just awesome way, building up what's been building up for 20 years. But the journey along the way, it felt episodic, like almost like it was short novellas in the world of this clan war. Which, like I said, it's probably a weird argument to make, because you could very easily make the argument that there is nothing gets wasted in this novel, which is also true. Like I said, there's not really any filler. It's as trim of a novel as it can be, being 700 pages. If you want a novel that is going to take you on a high octane trip through 20 years and all of the struggles that the Call family encounters within those 20 years, then Jade Legacy definitely delivers, and it delivers on that. I felt in the scheme of the three novels that this one wasn't as much of a single novel so much as it was like your greatest hits collection. You're gonna get all the hits, and that's not a problem. You're gonna love the hits. Everyone loves the hits. That's why it's all in one collection. But I almost wish it was broken up over multiple novels with filler. Anyways, it's a weird thing to say, but I managed to get through without any spoilers, which is pretty cool. One other thing I will say, I mean, you have the same great characters throughout. You got, like I said, your twists and turns. One other thing I will say, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I felt disappointed with Barrow's character. Barrow he's like a street rat. He's a street rat wanting to steal some jade for himself. The first two novels both opened and closed with Barrow. He's a very minor character in the scheme of like the families, but he is very important to major events that happen in the novels. Even though he might not directly cause the event, he almost gets the pieces in place, inadvertently in many cases, for these major events to happen. And this novel, the third title, Jade Legacy, does still start out with Barrow, but I felt that as the years went on, I don't know, I expected more things from Barrow in the second half of the novel, where, when you have 20 years pass, characters are getting older, they're going to be middle-aged by the time you get to the end of it, which, they're not going to be as spry as they might have been. But I don't know, I felt a little disappointed in Barrow's arc, especially in the second half of this. Anyways, like I said, it's a minor complaint, especially a weird complaint that there's not enough filler, which is, like I said, probably not a complaint you're ever going to hear again. But it's how I felt. Copies of Jade Legacy are available wherever books are sold through the trade edition through Orbit. If you are a fan of signed limited editions, Subterranean Press, Subpress, will eventually do their own limited edition of the whole Greenbone saga. They recently had the sale of the Jade Shards, which is a short story collection by Fonda Lee. That is sold out. There are 1,250 copies of Jade Shards. There are only going to be 600 copies of Jade City. So if you have the Jade Shards, you have, a 50% chance of, 1 in 2 chance of being able to pick up a copy of Jade City. But if you really want to get a copy of Jade City, I recommend trying to buy Jade Shards on the secondary market or through secondary sellers such as Grimroad Press or perhaps Camelot Books. And then eventually they'll do Jade War. Eventually they'll do Jade Legacy, and you get the whole matching set. Very excited to see what they do with it, especially being a huge 700 pager, especially because the trim size for Subterranean Press books have been getting kind of oversized lately. So very intrigued to see what they do with it. Anyways, like I said, it wasn't a bad conclusion. It wrapped everything up perfectly. It is a great conclusion to the trilogy, and it covers 20 years very well. I personally felt that she could have broken it up easily and gotten, several novels out of this, which I guess would have meant more filler, but it would have been less episodic in nature than Jade Legacy felt. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and we'll see you around next time.